Welcome to TestLab Intimate Interfaces. By the side of you sitting on those benches, I can see that it will be an intimate evening anyway. She's so cozy all together. My name is Michel van Dartel of V2, and for those new to the TestLab format, this is where this is a bi-monthly gathering that we organize. It's sort of informal, so we'll walk around through the space, and you get a chance to try everything out tonight. And this is especially a spot where we invite artists to present the work that they're currently working on in their workspaces and studios. So it features a lot of new ideas, new technologies, new materials, and they can be presented to you as finished projects, but moreover they're prototypes and works in progress, which is of course the time at which feedback is valuable to an artistic process. And that feedback should, in this format, come from you, the audience, tonight, because you will serve as a sort of test panel to the works that will be demonstrated tonight. And you can leave that feedback in the short Q&As that we do after each demonstration, in the wrap-up debate, but especially in the testing part of this evening, which is all the way at the end. After all the demonstrations, you get a chance to try everything out and also to speak one-on-one to the artists and give them your valuable feedback. These test labs are always organized around one specific theme, and tonight that's intimate interfaces. And what you see when you look for definitions of intimacy or intimate behavior, many theoreticians explain this as how we express to others that these others are significant to us. And there's many artifacts and interfaces that you can use to do so. The classic ones would be flowers or letters. We all know that. We all know those. But there's also tons of digital versions of that that we also all know and that have been introduced to us through digital technology. And those are email, SMS, Skype. Some people even get intimate in Second Life or other virtual worlds these days. But what is remarkable about this list of artifacts and interfaces is that they all mediate verbal and symbolic types of intimate expression. So you could ask the question, what happened to the mediation of physical intimacy? Why is that not mediated so commonly, and what are the problems in doing so? Of course, there have been many experiments in trying to do that, especially in the artistic realm. If you look at the history in mediating physical intimacy, you run into experiments of telepresence. There's a few artists that have been experimenting with cybersex and stuff like that. But they all seem to share trying to replicate an existing type of intimacy through a technological variation on it. And if you look at the outcome of those experiments objectively, many of them provide unfulfilling technological replacements that are just not up to par to the real deal, real touch or real presence of someone. So that made us think that maybe we haven't been looking in the wrong direction. Maybe we haven't been looking in the right direction. So that means maybe we shouldn't be looking for a technological replacement of an existing type of intimacy. Maybe we should be looking for new types of intimacy that these new technologies make possible. That is why tonight we have invited several artists that are working on projects that we think are trying to do so, that we think are going beyond unfulfilling technological replacements and try to... I have someone speaking for me. But they are really trying to mix up new technologies, innovative materials, and also the new views on the human body, and mix them all up into ways of intimacy or forms of intimate expression that were, until now, maybe unimaginable. So that's what we're set out to explore tonight. And we will do so by 3 demonstrations. One will take place on this side. It is a project by Karel Lancel and Herman Maat, a project called Teletrust. There is a demo setup in the back where Matt Johnson and Isabel Lizardi of Bear Conductive will present a new material to you. And thank you. And then we have at the far end of the demo section, we have Daan Roosgaarde of Studio Roosgaarde presenting his latest project to you, Intimacy. But before we go into this demonstration session, we have two opening speakers for you. The first one is Franco Berardi, who is a media theorist and philosopher. The second one will be Lucy McRae, who is a body architect and artist, and she will also serve as the critical respondent of the evening, which basically means that she is allowed to throw in a critical question or a critical reflection at any point during the program, and we will also give her an opportunity to reflect on the demonstrations that we have seen later on tonight. One more announcement that I would like to make for everyone sitting down. When we get up for the first demonstration, please take your jackets and bags, because we need to rebuild this space for the final demonstration. So just to make sure that your coats and bags don't get lost, take them with you or put them on the sides of this space. Well, I will give each and every one of the artists I just mentioned a more elaborate introduction just before their part in the program tonight. And the first one I will do that for is Franco Berardi, who is a philosopher, media theorist, and activist, founder of the magazine Attraverso, and staff member of the first free radio station in Italy, Radio Alice. He was actively involved in the political movement of Autonomia in Italy during the 70s, and then fled to Paris, where he worked with the French philosopher Félix Guattari on the topic of schizoanalysis. He published numerous books, contributed to many magazines, and has been lecturing worldwide on philosophy, art, and media. The main focus of his current research, and this is especially why we wanted to have him for this edition of TestLab, is on modes of mediated communication on the level of technology, perception, aesthetics, and epistemology. In this realm, he identifies a daunting development, which he describes as a shift from the conjunctive mode to the connective mode. And what these notions mean, we will hear from Franco Berardi.
In a book published in 1977, the American anthropologist Rose Goldson wrote a sentence that I quote almost every day. The book is, the title of the book is The Show and Tell Machine, and the book is not interesting, but the sentence, she says, we are breeding the first generation that will learn more words from a machine than from the mother. Well, I start from this prophecy, this prediction. 77, then something happened. In that book, Rose Goldson is speaking about television, but who cares? The focus of my attention is the relationship between language and affection, or maybe between language and lack of affection, and problems of the relationship. Well, you know, the Italian feminist Luisa Muraro, in a book about the symbolic order of the mother, says that the relationship between signifier and signified, let's say about the thing and the word, if you want, is guaranteed by is based on the relationship with the mother. I know that this is water. Actually, I know that this is aqua because my mother told me that. So the relationship with the thing is guaranteed by a relationship of affection, which, following the prediction of Rose Goldson, is vanishing, is maybe vanished. Well, you know, let's think. I only quote books from well, In her book Global Woman, Barbara Ehrenreich speaks about the huge transfer of affective labor in the world. Think to the city of New York, where 300,000 women every morning leave the house and the child and go to work. Emancipation, right? And think about 300,000 women coming from Nigeria, Philippines, and Malaysia, and so on, to care about the children of the women who left the house, and so on. What is going to happen in the psychic future of the 300,000 children who have been left home by the mother who has gone to Manhattan to care about? Well, I think that the relationship between language and affection is the cradle, is the place where the psychic bomb has been prepared, and the psychic bomb has already started to explode. Sensibility. I think that a good way to speak about the relationship between language and affection is to speak about sensibility. Sensibility, what's the meaning of this word is. Actually, I've been saying that the English language has the possibility of saying, has two different words, sensibility and sensitivity, you know. Let's say that sensibility is the ability to understand things that cannot be said by words. Does it work? I think it works. Well, and the sensitivity is the ability to feel the body of the other as the extension of your own body. Well, I think that here we find the source, the basis for the foundation, the starting point of the pathology which is going to, well, stop, conjunction, connection. I use the word conjunction like, I mean, Carl Gustav Jung, for instance, who wrote a book about the Mysterium Conjunctionis, about the mystery of the conjunction. I would say that the word conjunction refers to the relationship between round bodies. Round bodies means bodies, hairy bodies, dirty bodies, not compatible bodies, but sympathetic bodies. You know the etymology of sympathy. Sympathy is the ability to feel something together. Well, let's go back to sensibility. Sensibility is the ability to understand things that cannot be said by words. Sensibility and sympathy have something to do, of course, because it's thanks to the ability to understand something that cannot be said by word, that I feel a sympathetic relationship with the other, and, well, conjunction, connection. Deleuze-Guattari speak in general of concatenation, agencement, they say in French. Agencement, well, it's difficult to translate anyway. Concatenation is a good translation. Well, concatenation is the general way to speak of the relationship between beings, human, feeling, speaking, animal, wasps and flowers and stars and thoughts and words. Everything can concatenate and produce a rhizome. But in the general kingdom of concatenation, I would like to distinguish a conjunctive mode, which is the mode of concatenation of round bodies. You know, when bodies conjoin, something happens. I mean, something changes. Love changes the lover. When you shift to the connective mode, you discover a totally new way of concatenation. Connective segments, I cannot say connective bodies, I have to say connective segments do not change in the relationship. They stay as they were before. Something happens, of course, but it does not happen to the segments. Digits, bits, and in general, connective segments are able to produce thanks to a precondition of compatibilization. The process of making things able to connect is essentially a process of compatibilization. And compatibilization means a kind of fragmentation and fractalization, better fractalization than fragmentation. Not every fragment can be compatible. Not every fragment can be connected. Fractals are conceived and produced and existing because they can be compatibilized and can connect. Conjunction connection. Sometimes I wonder if the real artist of our time is much more than Lisa Attila or Joy Mirinda or Jonathan Franzen or Jonathan Safran Foer or Kim Ki-duk, Pekka Auvinen. You remember the Finnish guy went to his school and killed 9 colleagues with a t-shirt saying humanity is overrated. This is the perfect metaphor, artistic metaphor of our time. Conjunction and connection. I think that I want to approach the final considerations of my, can I say, speech, referring to the problem of connective time and conjunctive time. I'm trying to say something about the social condition of precarious labor nowadays, of labor in general, because labor is becoming, in general, a precarious form of social relationship. I think we cannot understand precarious labor if we don't understand the transformation of time from the conjunctive mode to the connective mode. What is the meaning of precarious labor? Precarious labor is the process of precarization is not only a juridical problem. It's not only the change in the juridical relationship between the boss and the worker, it's essentially a change in the substance of time and in the substance of a kind of time which can be cellularized, I mean fragmented in a cellular way, which can be fractalized, which means fragmented in a way that is recombinable, recombination of cellular fragments of time. This is the precondition of what can be labeled in general as precarious labor. Well, at the end, what is, I mean, my problem in life, the only one thing I'm able to think about is the possibility of social autonomy from capitalism. You know, everybody has an obsession. I've this one. And my focus is to understand how is it possible for us, for you, for me, to live in a social condition which is not totally determined by the capitalist domination, by the capitalist interest, by the capitalist form of dehumanization and so on. Well, it's more and more hard to reflect on this subject following the old categories of social solidarity, because quite simply, social solidarity means nothing nowadays. Social solidarity is not a moral value. Social solidarity is not a political problem, a political target. Social solidarity is a possibility which exists starting from a relationship of sympathy between human beings. So my problem now is essentially this. How is it possible to think to a new age of autonomy, of freedom from the capitalist rule? How is it possible to think a possibility of freedom from the slavery of precarization of time? And I must say that since the prophecy of Rose Goldson has become true, I find more and more hard to find a way out. The Goldson prophecy told, as you remember, we are breeding a new generation of human beings. We're going to teach, to learn more words from a machine than from a mother. Well, the prediction has become true. Now what? What's now the way out? Well, I will quickly go to the end of my speech, saying that I think that I'm finding the way. I see something somewhere, and what I see is the power of exhaustion. Exhaustion is the way. You know, in the relationship between cyberspace and cybertime, something very exhausting is happening. Cyberspace is an infinite space of virtual relationship between sources of enunciation, and cybertime is absolutely not an infinite space. Cybertime is the time of the brain, of the soul, of the mind, of the human ability to process signs and images and well, that's exhaustion. So I think that in this in this intersection, in this interfacing of cyberspace and cybertime, something is going on very fast, the exhaustion. When I think of exhaustion, of course I think to the exhaustion of physical resources of the planet, but also I think to the demographic exhaustion of the European population and of the population of the planet in general, become the growing old of the humankind, the senilization of the humankind as a wonderful possibility in the future. But especially I think, when I say exhaustion, I think especially to this effect of quick exhaustion of psychic resources of the humankind because of the process of acceleration of intolerable, impossible to follow acceleration, which is in the relationship between cyberspace and cybertime. Well, I think that the way out is exhaustion, and I don't think that this is only a joke. I mean, we should focus the possibility of finding a new relationship with our time, starting from the consciousness of the exhaustion, which is becoming the general framework of our life and of our dreams. I thank you very much.
Franco, can I have you here for a second? Maybe someone in the audience has a question after this? I would like to ask you one question, just to relay all of what you just said to some of the projects that we'll see here tonight. In one of the previous editions in Test Lab, we had a project by a design duo called Cute Circuit, and what they created was a shirt that you could give a hug, which was coded as a SMS message, then sent to someone wearing another shirt, and with some actuators in the shirt, the hug was translated to that other person. Would that be the type of project that could kind of counteract the shift to the connective mode?
Actually, I don't want to counteract I don't think that we have to counteract. I mean, that should be really reactionary and crazy. I mean, you cannot go back. You cannot ignore the shift. You can create conditions of a new sensibility and of a new autonomy, but starting from the present condition, I don't think that we will never go back to the good conjunctive relationship with the mommy, with the fiancé, and so on. No way back. Maybe a way out. That is my search. The way out, not the way back.
Okay, thank you. I think that was clear. Any questions from there? Can we have a microphone in the back, please? We need it for the live stream, for the people watching at home.
I want to ask again, as I understood you correctly, you say that cyberspace means the space is getting much bigger, and cyber time means that the time is getting much more elonged, it's getting more and more. Whereas I have learned from another place, and that said, in the Middle Ages, the time was infinite because the people knew where they were going to be after they died, and space was limited. So that the time was very long and the space was very small. And that vision said, now time is very short. We don't know what we are going to do next year. And space is very wide, so together we still have the same amount. is that the same vision you have, or you see both as like grown?
No, it's very interesting. You are right. In a theological universe, time is infinite, of course, and human space is limited. But forget about that. I mean, forget about God and so on, and think about cyber time in another way. I mean, cyber time is not time. Cyber time is the time of the brain, which is an organic thing, and of the soul, which is an affective place, maybe, and of the mind. I mean, cyber time is limited because it is the time of sensuous understanding is low, and understanding is sensuous for the human beings. And when I say that the relationship between cyberspace and cyber time is an exhausting relationship, I think to the organic, cultural, affective time, which is the time, the cyber time. And when I say that cyberspace is virtually infinite, I say something that is almost obvious by a mathematical point of view. I mean, it's the virtual point of relationship, the virtual space of relationship of infinite sources of enunciation. This kind of relationship is crucial for me.
Yeah, I understand very much your concept of the cyberspace, but your concept of cyber time I find a bit difficult to grasp still.
I mean, I will say it in a very easy way. The time that I dispose of with my brain and my affection and so on is too short to process all the information that I am called to process if I want to be competitive in the labor market, in the affective market, in the info market every day. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no more questions, then I think it's time for our next speaker. Thank you a lot. Next speaker is Lucy McRae. Working as a body architect for the Philips design probes, Lucy developed a series of technological garments that explore emotional sensing and the interaction between the body. Should I take the other microphone so you can set up? Yeah. Garments that explore emotional sensing and the interaction between the body and the near environment. For instance, and this is an example that most of the wearable technologists among you will probably know. For instance, by conceiving dresses that blush and shiver. However, in her own practice, often collaboration with Dutch designer Bart Hess and others, Lucy focuses on more low-tech prosthetic ways to deform, reshape, and amend the human silhouette. We have invited Lucy to especially focus on this part of her work, thereby representing those artists that explore issues in the mediation of intimacy through low-tech approaches. We have not invited Lucy because she explicitly focuses on intimacy, but rather because her work will make us fully aware that the issue of mediating physical intimacy might not be a technological challenge, but at least in part might be an issue of redesigning physical aspects of the body. We thought that would be a good point to address before we set out to see more high-tech approaches towards doing this. Are you ready, Lucy?
In this much time?
How much?
This much time?
That much?
Small. My battery just ran out.
Okay, I think
Yeah, I think
you're on.
it's going to be ready soon. I'm really happy that this. I'm very happy that exhaustion is key to moving forward. Thank you very much. I enjoyed. I enjoyed your talk. Something's happening here. Okay, I'm just going to start talking whilst my computer adjusts. Needs to be a bit smaller on the screen. Okay.
We have a magic button on
Oh, there we go. I'm going to present today in 3 parts. I actually discovered when I got here that it's only 15 minutes I'm talking, so I'm either going to talk less or talk faster. I'm going to choose. And I'm showing you work that I've been doing for the last 4 years. And I guess I trained as a classical ballerina, which I think is really important to my work, and inherently most of my work, if not all of my work, is fascinating with the human body. And I started working as a body architect at Philips Design, and I did work in a team called the Probes Program, and this is looking 15 to 20 years into the future, trying to understand what lifestyles are like that far ahead and then kind of working backwards. And the electronic tattoo was a project that started, sort of the way that we started working was by looking at trends, and this started by looking at 2 trends which we overlapped. At the end of 2000, kids across the world were not tattooing their bodies with a little dolphin on their lower back or a purple on their stomach. It was really tattooing their bodies from head to toe. And at the same time this was happening in the medical world, people were swallowing heart rate sensors, exploring into swallowable technology, electronic suppositories. So what we wanted to know is what happened when these 2 trends overlap with each other. So we made a movie called The Electronic Tattoo, and you can see this on YouTube. But I have to be fast, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. Within the Probes team, there's different areas that you can work in. Some of it's vehicle design, architecture, and I was always based on projects around the skin. So we kind of used skin as a dynamic model to start from. This particular project was part of an EU project called Stella, and Stella is a project developing stretchable, flexible electronic substrates which are transparent and which stick to your skin like a plaster when you've hurt yourself, like a Band-Aid. So this is starting to look at how actually jewelry, we were really interested in jewelry, how jewelry can become something else if you impregnate it with technology. So we were covering all different types of demographics and thinking about different subcultures. And actually this one was to be used in a hospital for the older generation. This one was more the kind of Nike culture. And we also did one for children, which was called the Philips Pet. Was sort of like the idea of an electronic Tamagotchi. So the child would wear it on their hand and it would be sensing activity, so accelerometer, sun exposure, so UV exposure, and also water intake. And the idea is that when the child hasn't been moving around much, the little Tamagotchi's eyes start closing, or when it hasn't drunk any water, the belly becomes empty, and the ears become burnt when it's had too much sun. And I actually talked at a jewelry symposium in Germany, and one Belgian guy put up his hand and he's like, "This is bullshit. Why would I want to give this to my child? I know if my child is thirsty. I know if it's getting fat." And this is exactly the kind of discussion that we're trying to prompt, is trying to understand what people want, what technologies are really relevant to the lifestyles in 15 to 20 years, and then from there, Philips can start carving out new business applications. So that's sort of one of the reasons why we do this work. These are just some kind of behind the scenes. Actually, Michelle has sent me an email saying, you know, maybe you did some dancing with Bart when you started a project. And I was like, well, I didn't do it with Bart, but I did it whilst I was at Philips. And this here is my friend Sita. She's a fashion designer from Antwerp. And this was actually one evening that started this whole idea around the blushing dresses. And I had this idea, it's like, I know what we're going to do. We're going to sew 2 lycra sacks. I'm going to get in one, you're going to get in the other, and we're just going to like wind our bodies around each other. And we did that for about 2 hours. And then Clive, my boss at the time, came and he was like, wow, this is great, this is fantastic, and started taking pictures. And actually this is where the bubble dress started, bizarrely enough. And also what we do, or what we did a lot, was this idea of digital draping. And digital draping is projecting images or movies onto the body and seeing how that morphs or changes the silhouette of the body. And this is, it's really actually fascinating. I don't know if anybody has ever projected a movie I actually projected one on the back of my neck, and without seeing this projection on the back of your neck, you could feel it moving purely because of the heat. So these kind of weird subliminal experiments that we're doing visual experiments, but then subliminal things start to happen, so it starts to make you think. And the blushing dresses were part of a collection. We actually wanted to make 8 dresses. We made 2 because none of us had ever done this before. But what we were trying to understand was what's happening on a physiological level when you kiss somebody for the first time. What's the exhilaration of a first kiss? And how can you actually sense that? And the fact is that you can't sense emotions, you can only sense rates of change. And this is currently being developed further in Philips research. They've now set up 10 scientists with an emotional sensing lab, so they're starting to investigate how we actually can sense emotions, which is quite scary. So what we were looking at is sensing different rates of change, and you do that with 5 different technologies. But what's happening here on the blushing dress is we have heart rate sensors on the body, and these are connected to 15 tiny LED projectors, which are simulating or emulating the wearer's emotions. So if she becomes more excited, more anxious, these are becoming light projections on her body. The idea was to actually have another dress, which through intra-body signaling, I don't know if anybody knows, it's like a technology made or developed in MIT, and it's a really fantastic basic technology. Probably the conductive skin team over there know all about it. It's where you use your body as a circuit and it closes a circuit. So the idea is the girls would hold hands and then they could pass their emotions from one dress to the other. We didn't do it because we didn't have enough time, but it was kind of a nice idea. And the interesting thing about the probes team is we really existed in the cracks of Philips design. We weren't churning out jugs or kettles or TVs. We were like making art for Philips, and everyone was like walking through the corridor, oh, the probes team, they're kind of, airy-fairy, what are they actually doing? And we used to work in the top floor, which is actually on the lift called the 5+ floor. And probably most of you have seen Being John Malkovich, where they kind of on the 7th floor like this. It was kind of like that. So we would get out of our lift and run to our cupboard and do the kind of probe stuff. And it wasn't until we won this big time award and we were asked to do an exhibition in Tokyo where everybody, when we would walk through the corridor, oh yeah, the probes team, yeah, they're really great. Actually, they're doing something within Philips. So then we became a fully fledged department. So we really had to prove ourselves the whole time. It was at Philips Design where I met Bart Hess, a collaborator of mine, and we were having all these ideas about how you could apply makeup to the body. We were thinking about scanning it on and printing it on, and at that point we were working on the electronic tattoo movie, and we didn't have any time to kind of explore our own ideas because we were kind of busy, finishing the deadlines that we were asked to do. So one evening we just stayed late in the office and we started like finding things, and we would just sort of hold this up to our cheek and then take a photo, and then maybe hold that to the cheekbone there and take a photo. And it literally started like that. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was just materials and sticking it on the body. Then we kind of decided, okay, let's meet every Friday and let's start experimenting. So we would meet in the morning on a Friday, either at my house or Bart's house, and we would go to the Wibra, which is this fantastic cheap shop, which I love. And we would go around the Wibra and we would find like balloons or toothpicks or sponges or Aufwasch middle or whatever we kind of thought was nice. And then we would bring them back to my house or his house, and then we would start playing. So we would kind of be in our own little corners. This was sort of our workshop time. So we would come back and kind of do a little workshop, and I'd sit down and like stick things to my face with sticky tape and then turn around and say, what about this? And he'd say, yeah. And then he would turn around, yeah, what about this? And so until we would just keep doing that until we kind of convinced ourselves that we found something that we liked. So then when we found something that we liked, we went back to the Wibra and we would buy 500 of those things. So, and it's actually quite funny because the woman, we used to go to the one opposite my house, and the woman that we used to buy them from, we would, at one point, I haven't got the picture here, but we bought like, I don't know, maybe 1,500 balloons, and she's just standing there like this. Beep, beep, beep. Never asked any questions at all. Like, my God, these guys are just going to have the greatest party ever. Never asked any questions. And actually, we never went back and showed any photos, which was a bit of a shame. So, yeah, this one is with pantyhose and balloons. And what is important to say is, before I didn't really see the connection between the work that I was doing at Philips and the work I was doing with Bart. And then I sat down with my dad in Australia, because I was going to talk at my university where I studied, and it was a really big thing for me. And I was like, yeah, I don't see the connection. He's like, what? You don't see the connection? And he said, well, I see it as Philips is kind of the science stuff, and the Lucy and Bart is the science fiction. And so I was like, yeah, maybe you've got something there, Dad. So in a way, the stuff that I was doing with Bart was kind of crystallizing the ideas that we were talking about at Philips. And we were talking about things like plastic surgery and monoaesthetic and the rebellion of the ugly and species and human evolution and genetic manipulation. So in a way, we were kind of crystallizing these ideas we were having at Philips, but actually making them low-tech but fast, because unfortunately in bigger companies it takes a longer time. And I'm talking really low-tech, because you can see here I'm wearing Bart's slippers. This is exactly where we did the shot. White background, painted wall, 2 soft boxes, and Bob's your uncle, there's the image. And this one is called Grow On You. I'm going to just show 3 projects. You can see everything on the blog, so I thought it's nice to show stuff that you can't see on the blog. And this one's actually a funny story as well. This is Grow On You, and it's made from Afwaschmittel, washing up liquid, everybody knows that, and food dye. And this also happened on a workshop day at my house, and I was like, Bart, come in. And I filled the sink with the washing up liquid and put a bit of food dye in there, and I was like, wait here. And I was, what about this? And he's like, yeah, that's great, we're going to go for that one. So, okay, he had to go away, and I actually had to go to Philips to drop off a book to Stefano Marzano, the boss there. So I just did my thing. Bart went off. Next day we meet, so I took the book to Philips. And, Stefano Marzano is this lovely man, and he's, very welcoming. Knocked on his door with the book to give to him, and he was like, open the door. Hi, Lucy. And he's standing there. And he just wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't. I was like, what's going on? Stefano, So I just gave him the book and then went off on my way. Clearly he's busy, budget crunches, whatever. So then I went back home, and then I went to brush my teeth, and I looked in the mirror, and my whole face was blue. I looked like death. And I'd walked around the whole afternoon, and nobody had told me. And it was because I put my head in the sink. It was, I think it's quite entertaining. So then the next day we did the workshop, and the amazing thing that we didn't know that was going to happen, which is the great thing about kind of experimentation, is that the food dye was actually heavier than the washing up liquid. So we were getting these amazing gradients. But what was happening is the washing up liquid was moving so fast, we just had to put it on, take the picture. So it was really like capturing this moment in time. And we take ourselves very seriously when we start mass producing. So we go to the Wibbera, we come back, and we kick into like mass production. So you can see here we've got the big buckets, a cake mixture. We checked which washing up liquid works better. Actually, the one from Aldi isn't as good as the one from Albert Heijn, probably because it's more expensive. So we tried whether hot water was better, cold water was better, and then we start making our mixture, and then we put it on the body, and we move around and we take some photos. This one's called germination, and germination is when you're at school, you make these grass men, and you put sawdust into the pantyhose, and they grow little hair, and you put eyes on them. Maybe you call them potato men here. I don't know. I think it's called grass man. So we wanted to make a grass man. So what we did is we worked like farmers, and we always plan to start very, very neat and tidy. So you can see here we've got the garbage bag, gaffer tape to the floor. This is in my apartment now. And we try and stay very clean. But of course, it's just like in the end, you don't even care. So we went to the pet shop this time, not the Wibbera, and we bought, I think, 8 boxes of this sawdust here on the side. 175 square metres of grass seed, and we stuffed 20 pairs of pantyhose. So we made these huge big textile sausages, and it's an amazing, it's like clay when you mould it. Really, really light, very, very itchy, but great to mould. And so, yeah, I hung these on Bart, and he posed. And in the beginning, when we started working together and posing, the poses were sort of quite conventional or formal, and then by the end, you're really just pulling as many different poses as you can. So this is Bart kind of becoming this grass man, and at the end, it's always funny at the end, like what you look like. Because actually, we usually do a shoot in one day, and at the end of the day, you're so kind of mentally disturbed sometimes. One time I had all this paper stuck to my face, and you can't really see whether you've made a good image or not, and it's not until the next day that you look in the computer and you ring, he rings me or I ring him, hey, it's a pretty good image we did yesterday. But at the end of the day, you're just like, yeah, see you later, bye, and then crack open a beer and watch TV. Then what we had to do was we had to grow the grass man. So we blew up a small child swimming pool in my living room, and we filled these sausages, we filled the swimming pool with these textile sausages. And I'm not really a gardener or green thumb, so I was a little bit nervous about growing these things because it was my responsibility now. So I went and bought all this grass grower, and when we put the sausages in there, I just covered it in this grower. I was like, can't go wrong, put all this grower on, it's just going to be fine. So the first couple of days, nothing was happening, and I rang Bart and I said, look, it's not going to work, you know, it's such a great idea, but it's not going to work. And then the third day, nothing, and I rang him, I said, I think I've killed it, it's like fluorescent green, this grass grower's still there, and it's not watering, and da-da-da-da. And then on the fourth day, I came out, and then I walked out into the living room. We had this grass green stubble like this, like a beard, all over the textile sausages. And so after 8 days, we had grass. And because now these were my babies, I was really precious about these sausages. And on the morning, I didn't want them to die, so I watered them, which meant that they were so heavy to put on Bart and for him to stand and have them on him. And I think in the end it weighed something like, 90 kilos, whatever. But I don't know if anybody has ever put on a wetsuit before. Yeah, it's kind of like you have to cross your legs like this and you pull it up. And it's actually quite difficult. And it was like that, but worse. But also because they were kind of a bit squishy, you couldn't pull them up too much because then you'd get a hole. And actually what happened was I put a hole in it, which I explain later. So this is what it looked like. Bart's standing in a bucket, which is dripping with water because I watered them in the morning because I was scared I was going to kill them. So heavy, a vein is popping out of his head. And because he couldn't stand, I had to put broomsticks up the back of him. So basically what happens, if he wants to fall, he cannot get out of the bucket because it's like wearing a really tight mini skirt. And he basically can't move, so he's just going to fall flat on his face. But the other thing that's really funny is the hole that I put in the sawdust. I'm standing in front of him and his legs are apart, and every minute this sawdust poo just drops out, and I have to try and stop myself from laughing because he's being very, very serious at this point. And so eventually we then take all these photos. Oh no, I didn't even have the final one there. Oh, I cut it out because I only had 15 minutes. You can check it out for yourselves. This one is a photo that we did in January, and I just show you quickly, a little movie. It's part of a book that's actually being published here in Rotterdam, actually. And we were asked to create a specific work for this book, and a philosopher has also written in this book, and we did the artwork. And the interesting thing was that we had to record everything that we were doing during this session, and you can see down the bottom of the book that there's all these sentences, so the whole time we're recording. And I mean, it took us maybe 4 or 5 hours to stick all those toothpicks on, so you're not really discussing, unfortunately we're not discussing really interesting things like what you were talking about. We were discussing like people's sex lives and whether Ricky should be with Esther, and whether you'd have a sex change, and of course you start switching off. And so when you read that content at the end on the book, it's really embarrassing. And especially when the girl who was translating the audio was one of the girls that we were talking about in the not in a bad way, we were just discussing her sex life, so it was fine. So that's that. How am I going for time? 3 minutes left. Okay, that's perfect. So now I have a studio in the red light district, which I moved in June. I'm working for myself. I'm not at Philips anymore, and Bart and I are only working on kind of academic, or we're calling it touring, so when we go touring. So now I'm setting up my own work, and it's really, really daunting, but also really, really exciting. And this is one of the first projects that I did. I took a break. I had 3 months off and came back and decided to stick all these drawing pins on my face. And I made a short little movie, if it's here. And this is, I'm really excited that I can show this because it's kind of allowed in a lab situation that you can show unfinished work. So actually all the work that I'm showing you now is unfinished, and I'm sort of deciding what I'm going to do with it next. But I'm really fascinated with skin, and becoming more and more fascinated with science. This is a project that I did with a friend of mine for Amsterdam Fashion Week. And actually you can see this on my blog, so I'm not going to show you it all. But this is using Q-tips, you know, the cotton buds that you clean your ears with. And we layered them up and made loads of swatches. Actually, Lobka, who's here, you helped us with the making of the Q-tips. And it's really amazing the way that this works is we were spraying it with food dye, and it just keeps absorbing the colour over and over and over again. And then you spray it with clear water and it comes out again. You can start all over again. So this was very exciting for me. And yeah, you can see here like what happens when you start overlaying it. It really becomes like a reptile skin. It was really, really nice material. Yeah, I'm really fascinated now with colour and water. I don't really know where the fascination has come from. And this is another project where I've wrapped another culprit in tubes. And it's quite funny because my studio's in the red light district, and if you hear the audio of this video, it's suck, 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 blow, blow softer, suck, 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 blow, suck. Okay, good. Yep. Okay, suck again. So it's quite funny audio with the video. Yeah, I'm working at the moment with an artist in Hong Kong, and he's asked me to develop 12 costumes for a superhero circus installation. So I'm just going crazy with materials, and actually have a really good shop here called Scrap XL. Fantastic. I went crazy there and filled a whole car full and took it back to Amsterdam. I'm waiting for them to open a shop in Amsterdam. She keeps promising me, but I don't know. So these are using different kinds of foams. But I also think what's interesting is when the body starts moving, and actually, yeah, I can talk a lot about body and movement, but how the material starts to react, and actually here it just kind of exploded off the body, and in a way then it became something else. It becomes more of an animation, which is really nice for me. Now I'm just going to totally freestyle here for the last 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah, my fascination with science and physics, maybe it's always been there, but I feel like it's really coming out now. So this is an exploration I was doing with water inside balloons and with pantyhose. And of course, being a dancer, I'm really interested in tendons and muscles and capillaries and cells. And actually, I went for a head scan 2 weeks ago because I now have, I'm the proud owner of an implant in my mouth. And I'm also having a cow bone inserted in my jaw. This is really exciting for me because I feel now that I'm kind of becoming, I don't know, this sort of testing lab for technology. But when I went to this head scan, I came out of the scan and I saw my skull rotating in 3D on the computer screen. I almost wet myself. It was just, I knew when I woke up in the morning something good was going to happen. You know, sometimes when you have that feeling. And I had this feeling, and I spoke to this man who was this radiologist, and I was like, you know what, when I woke up this morning, I knew something good was going to happen. He's like, well, the day's early. I was like, whoa, it just can't get any better than this. And basically, I wish I could show you now, but I can't because I'm using a Mac and not a PC. But this is my brain, and I can move in and out of my brain through these sections. And for me, maybe if it was you, you would also be pretty freaked out because this is where it's all happening. So now I'm starting to think, okay, how can this start to come out in my work? And I think I'm quite immediate with inspiration. And actually, I just did a photo shoot yesterday, which is starting to look at, I don't want to call it what it is, but it's starting to look at skin and prosthetic and tubes and technology. So it's really, for me, quite immediate, this this brain scan that I had. And at the same time, this is just in the beginning, but this is, I went and talked at Hyper Island. Do you know this school in Sweden? Very, very cool school. Doing crazy interaction stuff. And this guy put his hand up and asked if he could like build my website. And I was like, oh, I'm not too sure about that because it's, remote. So now we're just testing, and I'm kind of pinging ideas back to him and he's playing with me. So I'm thinking when I send him those DICOM files of my skull, then things are going to get really interesting. So now I'm still really unsure where it's all going, but I'm just really happy playing with materials and kind of combining maybe the technology's coming back in, but in a different way from when I was working at Philips. So thanks very much for listening and for having me. Cheers.
One thing, you referred to it for a second already, that I asked you whether you'd actually dance with hats in these suits or something. But I still think that some of the projects that although they're aimed very much at this one person, that one moment, they would also make great social experiments in terms of going out on the street and see how you can interact with people or both wearing, stuff like that, and see what happens.
Well, I guess in a way, if you come to my studio, then you get to experience that. Both of my friends are here and they come in and sort of, you don't actually get to wear it, but you kind of get to see it, and it's always a bit of a shock. I haven't really thought about more, I guess it's more street art or performance art, but I'm really interested in working with a dance company, for sure, especially because I used to be a dancer, so it would be really nice to kind of complete that circle. And maybe I would like to think about, either dance companies in Holland or dance companies in Australia. Sydney dance companies are a really good example of doing experimental kind of costuming. But also the thing that it does is it really changes the way that you behave with people and with your environment, because if you've got huge big cushion balloons around you and you roll on the floor, then you're rolling around the floor in a completely different way to when you're rolling around the floor with clothes on. So I think you have a reaction.
I was actually thinking of that when you showed the one with with the pins on your face. Like
that was really weird.
Give someone a hug or something.
Yeah, and actually when I see that picture, I can feel, I know what it feels like to wear it, and also to take it off, because I was crying to take it off because it really hurt. But yeah, it does, it changes your behaviour for sure.
Any one of you with questions?
Yay.
Over here. Wait, can we wait for the microphone? It's coming up. Yeah.
I just saw in your work, there is a power in multiplying stuff and making stuff bigger. And I think it's really interesting because it stays the same product, but it becomes another product.
Yeah.
Because it's in like a giant form transformed or something.
Yeah.
But how do you see it? What's the power of your work that becomes it so magical? And
I don't know. I guess I don't really look at it in that way. It's more about that I keep making things, actually. I think for me, and I'm discovering it more and more, maybe like a child when it hasn't eaten for a while, if I haven't made something for a while, then I get a bit irritable. So I think it's quite a close emotional relationship that I have, which is only, I've actually just discovered this in the last 3 or 4 months. So, and now that I'm just working by myself, I think that the image is changing, because now, if you look at these last 2 pictures, or for example this one, now it's not only, because I totally understand it's about repetition, so if we're using sponges then it's like 5,000 sponges, but I think now what could happen is what happens when you use repetition with another material, and I think that's where the story might change and the narrative, maybe. but it's not a conscious decision. I'm just sort of, following what's going on around me totally. Thanks for the question.
Would you consider bringing technology back into your work, like wearable technology and changing the silhouette in an analog way?
Yeah, I'm actually going to Serbia in January to meet with some engineers to, I don't really like talking about things before they haven't happened, but we're looking at creating like real-time motion capture. So the idea is that I'll be wearing something on my body, and when you project on my body, it will only project on my body. So it's kind of creating a live skin. So I can project animation, I can project fur, I can project not text but material, and it's only going to stick on my body. And for me, maybe that's, but it's not, it's not an intention.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
That's good. Any more questions? Over here?
I'm pretty curious here.
Oh, hi.
Thank you. Do you still want to, to inspire R&D on, for example, technology and human enhancement with your work? Because there's a lot of stuff happening in that world, and I think it's interesting as a kind of science fiction person to.
I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lucy. I think we need to move on now.
Yeah.
To the demonstration
I
section.
kept my 15 minutes. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Good.
And but you'll stick around for the critical questions, right?
Of course.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy. Maybe a little applause for that. And this is the time where we need to make some changes in this space, which means that the people that were fortunate enough to get a seat in time need to get up so that our production people can take out these benches. And then we'll walk to that side of the space, if you can all follow me. I think this can best be viewed from here, where I would like to announce the first demonstration of this test lab edition. And this will be done, Richard, can I have some light here? And the first demonstration is by, or will be by, Karen Lancel and Herman Maat, who create meeting spaces in public space, for which they use a combination of online and offline media. Their work focuses on social and technology-based networks, which they research through combinations of social interventions with installation art. Their audience typically invited to experiment and play with their work, as well as to reflect on their own experiences. So I think Test Lab is a perfect match in that sense. And these reflections are considered social portraits of urban mediated life. I believe that all these aspects of Karen and Herman's work accumulate in their latest project that we see here, Teletrust, which was realized in collaboration with the Bali fashion artist Aziz and our very own V2 lab. Karen Herman?
Yes, I'm still looking for Karen. Karen has prepared a talk, but I don't know where she is actually. Oh yeah, she's getting a mic and coming over. Okay. Karen.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello. Well, can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for being here. We're very delighted. And I can hear a lot of sound there, but can you hear me if I talk? Is that all right? Okay. So we are very much, we were very happy when we got invited on the theme of intimacy. Hearing the first speaker about sensibility and connection in cyberspace is very much connecting with the way we work. I want to first, if you don't mind, you stand there like a ghost, which you are, because Teletrust, a project, is about being visibly invisible, which completely fit to that image. And you're wearing a data veil, and it's an interactive data veil. So first I will tell you a little bit about what's the background of the project, and then we will explain how it works. Is that good for you? Okay. I wrote some notes, but I'm not going to read it from paper. So we think intimacy, to feel intimate with someone, you need to trust that person. It's necessary to trust a person to be intimate with. So our whole research is about how do we trust someone who we cannot see, how we cannot touch. Do you need to touch someone to trust? Do you need to see someone's eyes to trust? By media, we more and more cover ourselves from each other through mobile telephones, through internet, through all kinds of personal media devices. And at the same time, we try to reach each other more and more and talk with our friends all day on Facebook. We have, I think, about 500 friends on Facebook, or was it even 750? But what is a friend, and how do you trust this person or not? So while media is giving us more and more the possibility to connect worldwide, at the same time we're hiding our body. It becomes a bodiless existence. Arjen Mulder is talking about this in his book on media theory, about the way we become a bodiless existence in a data space. So how do we experience our body? How does this shift our own body experience, and how does this shift the way we experience someone else? In Me++, William Mitchell writes about, and I quote this, we become a nodular subject for which disconnection would mean amputation. I am part of the networks, and the networks are part of me. I show up in directories, I am visible to Google, I link, therefore I am. But if my body feels like I'm there within the cyberspace, what does this do to our experience of being private or being public? Does my body more and more become a public body, sharing private things within a cyberspace? And how does reciprocity work? Wederkerigheid. What quality does this have? How intimate can it become? How much can we trust someone on what this person is giving us a feedback? Most chat rooms are filled with text like, where are you now? And what do you look like? And what's your age? And what's the color of your eyes? And all this kind of scanning. Are you really there? Are you really that child of 8 years old? And are you not that scary man? Well, fill it in your own imagination. So researching this experience of, oh, you're here too, sorry, of intimacy, and doing this together, to feel intimacy together as within the art field, we're very much inspired by the works of Lydia Clark. I'm not sure whether you heard of her. She's from the 70s, last century, and she made performances with the kind of costumes in which you could you would wear a costume, and the other person would wear a costume, and you would start to embrace each other and hear all kinds of sounds. So there was no technology, electronic technology involved. She would call it performance with her audience, an experience of reciprocity on the basis of what she called lived experience and body knowledge. So she worked with sensory perception and psychological interaction. And from her research, we developed a tangible electronic networking body for teletrust, and see how we can bring to life a bodiless existence in our own bodies. And now with teletrust, we want to do a proposal. If you state that when you want to trust, if you need to trust somebody, little detour. If I make a good business deal, I can do this by email. But once I want to exchange the money on the business deal, I travel to China and shake hands and see, can I really trust you? And see someone in the eyes and feel on his body, I can or I cannot. So if you state that you need this kind of reciprocity, we do a proposal. Can we maybe not go to China, stay within our own habitat, our own home, and use our own body to anchor the same kind of trustworthy experiences touching another person. So by touching our own body, hear and feel the other person, contact the other person. Can we use our body for the anchor of social contact, of trust and intimacy? Because it's this body, if you feel your own body, it has this tension, this warmth, this flexibility, and this anchoring in the presence. So, for Taylor Trust we have made data fields, electronic data fields. Thank you for wearing this tonight. This is to wear for everyone tonight. We have another one there. We have, in fact, 6 of them. And together with Simon at V2, we wove flexible touch centers within the cloth. Now, you can see a little bit here, very little, but there are also threads that are not interactive. Some are interactive, some are not. So when you feel it, when you wear it, and you feel your own body, you get a concentration on your own body and not on sensors. We developed this, thank you, the design with a Moroccan designer called Aziz, and we discussed with him that this whole anxiety for people being invisible, people being bodiless, people being in burqas in the northwest of Europe. We wanted to translate that within a costume about being visibly invisible. So this costume is inspired on the idea of a monk's clothing, a monk's habit, which we were very much used to when we were still living in the Middle Ages. Also on a burqa, also on Darth Vader of. And I hear you. The Jedi, yes. And the cloth is actually from the most trustworthy people in the world. It's wool. It's from a business suit. It's a businessman suit clothing, 98% wool and 2% elastan to make it really comfortable and really trustworthy and really warm. Are you okay? Yeah. So now we want to create with this a social network. When you're in there and you touch your own body, you will hear through a microphone, through an, can you, yeah. And then you have to touch your own body, yeah, right. So maybe I'll first explain. So we spend a long time finding out how you can invite, how you can wear this veil and touch your own body and still feel that you have to search, that our voices and other people are in your body and that they can be everywhere in your body, that they're like memories, stories, traces within your body. So it's not like my body is a button. My body is not like a button interface. It's like you have to search over and over again. And because this is very wide, the cloth will move all the time. So sometimes you find it here, and sometimes you find people here, and you hear voices, and they're here in your ears. People talking about, do I need to see you in the eyes to trust you? And these voices, they come from interviews we had in the street, in the public space. We would go to people with an iPod and a microphone and say, I can see you have a mobile phone there, and I can see your friend is somewhere else. Do you need to see each other in the eyes to trust each other? And people would come up with stories like, well, I don't trust you. Ooh. Or yes, the eyes are the soul, are the portal to the soul you trust, but very personal, very direct reactions, and they're all within the body of the data veil. So when you touch your body, you hear people talking from the public space. And while we are now wearing the veil here, I will interview you around, so everyone who's wearing the veil hears everyone around talking about, do you need to trust each other? Do I need to see your eyes? And at the same time, when you go in the veil, we will take a photo, a picture of you on that computer. And when you disappear, your face and your eyes will be there, visible, watching you and watching the people around. And all the texts that are here are also typed out here so everyone can read it. So you can add to the data veil, and your text will be wirelessly uploaded to the veil through interviews I will do later. You can also go to the website there, to the guest book, and you can also go with Twitter, Tailored Trust Lab, and there's a dash in front of it. So all these texts are uploaded to the veil and are hearable by you. Do I still? Yeah. Last afternoon, we went into the Rotterdam public city and we interviewed people there. We have filmed the data veil, and these traces are now visible on that screen. You can see you walking, and we will later this evening film you the veils again and everybody around which are traced there. So Tailored Trust itself is a kind of very transparent surveillance box in which everyone is surveying and exploring their selves, their intimacy on their own bodies. Welcome later into the data veils. Thank you. Oh, maybe it's good when we try it. Yeah. So maybe now you can try, but can you touch your own body? Yeah. Can you hear this in the? Yeah.
Kinda, I think everyone should have a try later on. Right?
Yeah,
Themselves.
I want you. Yeah.
Everybody can try it later.
Yeah. Okay.
I was wondering, because thinking of your project, I was curious. I heard many people that have been in there. I haven't been in there yet. I will try it tonight though. And they all give the same story of feeling very vulnerable inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering which part and how far that comes from the technology that you used and how far it's actually the garment covering you. Because we had a presentation last week. You were there, Herman, Nobotic Research in the Biennale. And they presented what they called the McGilly suit, which is a camouflage suit for the urban environment. And basically what the suit does is nothing more than blending in when you're against the right background and totally standing out because no one's wearing a camouflage suit in the urban environment usually. Right. So there was this conflict in the suit. But everyone in that suit also reported that they felt very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And their theory was, it was because your view's kind of narrowed. You can only look out into the front, but you can't see who's behind you, who's next to you. And that actually made that feeling of being very vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what then is, in this experience, is making that experience of vulnerability. Is it the veil itself, or is it the technology? Or what does the technology add?
Well, I walked this afternoon with Ivana, and also I walked myself. And what happens is you become very aware of the people watching you, but at the same time you cannot really hear them, and you hear these very intimate voices about trust. And so you have a different audio experience compared to the visual experience. So that contrast becomes bigger, and you feel invisible, but you feel socially very much looked on. Everybody is looking at you immediately, and you know that you cannot be seen at the same time. So it is this visible invisibility that makes it very strong.
So what you're saying is that actually the feeling that you get from the garment and what is established by the technology are contradictory, and that makes it kind of estranging.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's also there have also been a lot of times that people came out and said, I'm feeling very quiet in there. It's very, there are very much little distortions, very much little, you're not disturbed by a lot of visual.
It feels very private at the same time.
Yeah.
But you are public.
Yeah. And I heard also people saying, I feel I have a lot of power. I can watch others, but they cannot watch me. And all those reactions, it evokes a lot of social contradictions and paradoxal situations. Yes.
So it's also very dependent on the person.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. And on the environment. Whereas in the public space, the street, it's a much more aggressive situation than I think tonight. And it depends on these kind of moments. When you walk, when you really have to look around, you feel your body is very vulnerable because you're in a way handicapped. You can hardly see well, which like within a burqa. I've tried the burqa myself, and then I walked around and I really had to look like this when I stepped down or something.
This one has better visuality
yes,
than the burqa.
Yeah.
Burqa is worse.
Yeah.
But what is different here also, we have now also the performance in Amersfoort, and we have a projection in public space. And what you can do at the same time, when you touch yourself, you do not only hear yourself, but you also manipulate the screen. So you have this combination of manipulating an urban screen in public space with these quotes, visualizing all the people that have been invisible. So you have a database and an interactive system that visualizes this process.
Yeah, and in next March we will take it to Canada, to Banff, and then we make a network with Amsterdam, I-beams, I think. So we make a network with several data fields connecting to each other, and then the data field becomes a kind of exclusive group of people connecting in the cyberspace worldwide through their bodies. Yes.
And that's also why the setup here is with 2 data fields, so that actually this other space could be anywhere, but at the same time you manipulate the same screen.
Okay, that's clear. I would like to go back to the experience and ask whoever is in there what he or she experiences.
Can you hold the mic?
Yeah.
Well, I have to agree about the quiet serenity in here. I like it. I didn't really get how the pictures are connected.
Yeah, the first picture is connected to you. That's you. You saw it. Okay. And then every other picture is random. Like you don't know who you're meeting there in the network. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed all the voices whispering to me, depending on where I touch myself. It sounds very dirty, but it's actually very nice. A little bit warm.
Yeah.
But I really like the interface.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I think that's an invitation for everyone to try it.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it? I think we have time for one question from the audience, if someone has one. Everyone just wants to try it, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Well then, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Herman, for this demo. Please all try it out yourself later on. Can we have a little applause for Karen and Herman? And Alex. Okay. And then it's time for the second demonstration of the program, which is over here. If you can follow me.
Did you guys hear anything when I put the mic to the...
No.
No. It went... Yeah.
It was probably too soft. It needed a higher level, but it doesn't make that, so it's okay.
So if we can have some lights.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah.
In this corner.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's warm.
We're here at the demo stand of Bare Conductive Limited, who developed and currently produce the Bare Skin Safe Conductive Ink, which is a non-toxic conductive ink allowing the application of circuitry directly onto the body. The material allows to interact with electronics through gesture, movement and touch, and is currently being applied in areas including dance, music, computer interfaces, communication and medical devices. We have 2 founding members of Bare Conductive here. This is Isabel Lizardi and Matt Johnson, who will be assisted by Jan Miske and Annemarie de Vries of Data Dance to demonstrate the exciting new material
that they're about to show you.
Thank you. I guess I'll start by just giving a little bit of context about the project. This is a project that began actually last year in October, and it's a project we developed at school during our master's. There's actually 4 people in the group. It's Matt, myself, and 2 others who actually couldn't make it today. But we began this project as an experimental research project, and we weren't actually aiming to develop a conductive ink when we started. It really began as an exploration into technology and the body and the way we interact with all the devices around us. And we became very interested in how there's this trend for miniaturization in technology and for implants, and yet nobody focuses so much on the way we actually interact with these interfaces and making them more sensual or elegant or, I guess, natural to the way humans actually behave. And so we began to focus on the skin as a surface to work on because we were looking at wearable technology and implants again, and we wanted something that was in between, that wouldn't be as invasive as an implant or as static as, say, a garment. We wanted it to be a soft technology that you could change and manipulate and wipe off and then reapply in a new way. And I guess it's important to note that none of us are actually electronic engineers or material scientists. We all mostly come from design backgrounds, and we started this development process basically through lots of research into existing materials and into cosmetics and food additives and conductive anything that we could find, and we just played with our skin and put it on and tested until we refined the material to what we have today. And so Matt's going to explain a bit more about what we're actually doing in this space.
Okay, so I guess just to point it out, we'd love it afterwards, after all the presentations are finished, if you guys wanted to come and play with it a bit. That's the material in a liquid form. It just looks like a paint or an ink. As Isabel said, I mean, we make this in our kitchen right now, and we have kind of a long history of, well, a year-long history of many versions of this. So come and play with us when we're done. What we're going to do today is a fairly simple demonstration. There's these pads on the floor. Each one of these pads is painted with the ink. It's just a piece of foam with the ink on it. It basically becomes an electrode, and then we're going to connect between the electrodes using kind of turning two of our dancers into giant wires, basically. So the interest that we have in this kind of interaction is just that you get different effects as you create different circuitry. So they're going to have a little play out here doing that, and then hopefully we'll try something a little more experimental, which is that the ink has a value as a variable resistor as well, or as a potentiometer. So we'll try and demonstrate that. So bear with us. We hope you enjoy it, and then come up and paint yourselves up, and we can play with it. Okay, so I'll explain what's going on. Basically, and as Lucy said, what's great about this is that this is a forum for us to kind of try to push the material a bit more, especially with lots of people watching, which is great. What we're trying to do is change the amount of resistance that's going between these two pads, and what they're doing is kind of decreasing the distance between the pads or increasing the distance. And in theory, it should be kind of subtly changing the pitch of this. I'm going to see if I can amplify the effect a bit. One of the things we deal with in this project is working directly on the body, which is extremely difficult because I guess we didn't anticipate that we would be all the problems that come with working on a material that sweats and stretches and breathes and changes, and everyone, these two are have very nice, very moist, very well kind of taken care of skin. We find some people have skin that's really dry and it soaks the ink in like a piece of paper. But I guess the important thing about that for us is that all of this development work means that it's really stable off of the body as well. So now we're beginning to silkscreen the ink, and we're working on printing the ink in other kind of more commercially appropriate, and I should say maybe small-scale appropriate methods for prototyping at home as well. So yeah, I guess that's about it.
Also, thank you, Jan and Annemarie, for the performance. And it's open for everyone to try out later on, I guess. Now, I was thinking, because this is the night of intimate interfaces, I presume that many people have proposed various types of intimate scenarios with this paint. I mean, I don't know if people saw this here, but you had this collaboration with Calvin Harris, right? The human synthesizer, which is also kind of sexually provoking.
Yeah.
Are there other scenarios that people have kind of brought to you or proposed to you for use of this?
Well, I mean, I think what we really like about it is that you really do wear it, but you also remove it. I mean, it's water soluble, so anybody who puts it on, you just wash it off. And so that allows for a really intense level of play. You can get really dirty and you can like really cover yourself in it. And so we've had a lot of people who kind of imagine group scenarios, like where you get lots of people involved. They say, oh, let's paint 100 people with it and see if we can make a giant kind of human coil to generate some sort of power or do something like that. And I guess that's the more people you add to this, the more interesting it becomes. In that collaboration, we were working, I think, with 26 people, and so you have 26 people all forced to kind of examine each other's bodies and become very close and really look at their movement and at their skin. So it's always, when we're using it on the body, it's always really close and honest and intimate.
We've also had a lot of people interested in actually the idea of tattooing it into, even though it was, for us, it was designed importantly as something that would be temporary. We have had many people ask us whether it would be possible to tattoo it into your skin to therefore have permanent things around, working around it. And so that's another way, I guess.
And is it possible?
We haven't tested it, but there's no actually indication that it shouldn't be perfectly possible.
Maybe Lucy wants to try it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's another definite area that we've thought about and people have mentioned as well.
Are there any more questions from the audience? Over where? Can I see a hand? Oh, over there?
Yeah, hi. I read years ago, actually, when Bluetooth was just coming out, I was reading about paint that you could, just swipe on a wall and it would be wireless and you could reach, you could watch videos on it or something like that. Could you actually get something like a wireless connection with this, so that you could maybe transfer like the emotions that we talked about before, these kind of things?
Well, I guess we always say that that the ink is fundamentally a really simple material, right? I mean, it's basically a wire or a variable resistor. I mean, with the benefit that it's totally non-toxic. I mean, you can eat it. Everything in it has been approved by somebody, by an agency to be, by somebody, Isabel. No, by an agency to be either a food product or a cosmetic. So the key is it's a simple material that's really safe in its components. And the complexity needs to lie in its use. So we've looked at using it to print temporary RFID tags, right? And the example there is the ink just acts as the coil, right? And the memory is something separate. So you could use it on the built infrastructure. You could paint it on your wall and have it either work as an antenna or to transfer signals to something more complicated like an LCD, or an EL display or something like that. But the ink itself doesn't have a ton of kind of capacity for information storage, I guess.
I have one more question. I remember that, maybe it still is actually, that flexible circuits were a big thing in wearable technology. And I think both of you are also kind of familiar in that scene. But the main issue, if I remember well, was the washability of things. Do you have like a non-washable version as well?
Well, we've had two strange kind of side effects of our process, which is that we didn't intend to make the ink the color that it is. We just continued to refine the formula, and then we're satisfied when it has this kind of dark black sheen to it. We have a lot of people ask, could we change the color? And the other question is, could we make it washable? But we designed it to be water soluble, because that was a part of the kind of narrative of the project, is as soon as you want to disengage, you just wash it off and that's it, you're finished. But considering the amount of interest we've had, we've started to look at that because a lot of our technology is based in candy making, and candy makers are very good at manipulating the kind of speed at which candy dissolves. And it sounds really simple, but actually it's incredibly difficult to make good candy. And we found the same thing with this. So there is kind of an area there to make it more washable, but that's certainly not possible yet.
I guess the thing to mention is also that we graduated in July, and we actually picked up the project then. And so we haven't done that much, more science on it since we actually finished. So now is when we're actually starting to take it forth and to try and actually do these tests, like maybe the possible tattooing or making it waterproof or changing the color or other aspects of it.
So basically, if people around here have interesting scenarios for you, then they should come back here and tell you about them?
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's no more urgent questions right now, then I would like to close this demonstration and go to the next one. Thank you very much. Also, thank you, Jan Annemarie. And for the next demonstration, it would be best if we could make a circle around here somewhere, so also that we have some space in the front here. Okay. Because this next project will be something that we have both a catwalk for, but also need some space here on the floor for. And this is a project by Studio Rozengaarde in collaboration with Maartje Dijkstra. Studio Rozengaarde is an independent artistic laboratory in which interactive artworks are being developed, and their work explores the dynamic relation between architecture, humans, and new media. The work that Daan Rozengaarde, next to me, creative director of Studio Rozengaarde, will present here tonight is a first demo version of a collaborative project between Studio Rozengaarde, fashion designer Maartje Dijkstra, and the V2 Lab. Daan?
You want me to talk about it, or you want to see it first? What would you like? You want to be on the stage? Yeah. No, this project is a bit awkward because for a while, as you may know, we've been fascinated with this idea of tech is such a huge part of who we are right now, à la Facebook, à la LinkedIn, à la Hives. But at the same time, I always believe that within 10 years we won't be looking at screens or beamers anymore, but this technology will get out of the screen and starts to embed our doors, walls, our skin. And we have always been talking about the sensual side of tech and to make it like this extension of our skin. But mostly what we did was make installations for museums and public space and architecture. And on one moment we were like interested in like, okay, let's put our actions where our mouth is and sort of go to the discipline where this extension of our skin is the most present, which is fashion. And for me, there were sort of like three things which triggered me to do this out-of-the-box project. One, because it's a discipline which I'm not familiar with. So, you know, suddenly I'm meeting all these people who are very good at something which I know very little of, which I like somehow, because it forces you to rethink your ABC and move away from your sound bites which you develop if you're an artist too long in the same way. Secondly, it was the great team up with V2 and Maartje and the people from the studio who sort of merged their brains together in order to make fashion which is dynamic, which somehow would change according to some kind of emotion. And thirdly, and there was also sort of like a cracker, when I was visiting one of the labs of the companies we sometimes work with, which works a lot on flexible screens, they were showing me around, and suddenly I saw these prototypes laying in a corner, and they were showing me the flexible displays, etc., like more pixels and all this bullshit stuff. I asked them like, okay, what is this material? You know, what does it do there? And they were like, oh, that's nothing. You know, we're working on these displays, and the only thing that this material does is changing from transparent to white and vice versa. And I was like, oh, that was really like an intriguing thing. Because like the first project, sometimes you're in Marrakesh and culture is about hiding yourself, identity is about, you know, enclosing yourself. But when I was in LA a week and a half ago, it's more about how the more you show, the more you are in a way, which somehow is fascinating. So at what moment becomes your identity a part of that? And how can we use technology in order to make that more dynamic? And that was the project Intimacy. But I suggest, because I don't want to talk too long about it, is that we start showing it, and maybe come back to you later on. Thank you. So what you see here actually is there are two types of main interactions which we did here, and of course there are many visible. One is this pearl which you see right now, which has some kind of wireless device between the dress and the pearl itself. So the closer you bear it to the dress, the more pulsating, transparent it's become. And please be my guest to give it your own try. So when you move away, it becomes more white, and the closer you get, the more opaque it gets. And the other interaction is with photo cameras, with flashes. Like the moment someone takes a picture with a flash, it sort of becomes 2 or 3 seconds, very short, transparent. And at the moment, this is one of the first pilot that we made. It's still many things to explore in terms of that input. Yeah.
Okay, Dan, maybe we step back on the stage and we also get the project here?
Yeah, take a walk. Let's come. Can you come here in the spotlight so we can have a look?
Now, one of the first questions, it's a very obvious one, is how does it exactly work? What is happening inside the material?
You mean the material itself?
Yeah.
It's sort of like how do you say it? There are like two types of materials, which actually the moment you put like a little electricity on it, they change from direction, and that makes that it's like white or transparent. So it's on a low level, the material changes, and this can go on for ages. Yeah. Can I have the pearl, please? Where is it? I can demonstrate you.
It's stolen.
Oh my God, it's gone. Or can you show them? Yeah. Can you show it a bit?
So it's actually like small particles in there that change direction.
Yeah, yeah. And somehow I like this idea that we use very little electronics. So sort of the material itself already has some kind of intelligence, and that makes sure that you can move away from the LEDs and the obvious sensor stuff, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. And then another question before I break it open to the audience is, we all know this kind of scenario where you have X-ray eyes and they allow you to see through people's clothing, which is related to this, but actually what you're doing is the reverse. I mean, the control here is not at the viewer, but at the person being viewed.
Yeah.
So how does that change the scenario, and what type of intimate behavior can you get from that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always like to make things which somehow, where there's a direct relationship between who you are and what you want, and how the surroundings looks like that. So actually to let go of some kind of control is something which is highly intriguing, and to use technology in a sensual way like that. That's where the poetry and the magic starts kicking in. Yeah.
But you can also really, through your control over this as a wearer, show that someone is significant to you by showing more of yourself, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the moment, like now it's a pearl, which of course is like an object, but the moment it's like based on the voice recognition of your boyfriend, who has some kind of control over you. I mean in the end, you know, maybe every relationship is about that you let go of something to become more. So how can we make interfaces, and how can we make fashion which sort of appeals that in an intrinsic way? Okay. But I sort of like this idea of letting go somehow, yeah, and to become more.
Okay. Are there any questions in the audience? Over there? Can we have a microphone over there, please?
How much electricity does it use?
It's very little. It works on a high voltage, but the amount to change it, to dim it, that's like a hundredth of an LED. Yeah.
Okay, so you can just have a battery and wear it for a day.
Embedded solar panels.
And how big is the surface? For now you have stripes, but that's perhaps just for practical reasons for the fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious how big the surface can be with one. You can make it 1 meter, for example.
Yeah. We've been working on surfaces of 1 by 2 meter, complete. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
and
it's like
expensive?
paper.
Is it expensive?
Yes.
Yes. That's a pity.
No, but I think, and for me, this is one of the crazy projects that I've been working on. We're also working on a material which the moment you heat it, sort of it folds open. But of course, it's not, you know, these projects are not only material or technology driven. It is like, since we live in this world which changes from analog to digital, the way we see our world is continuously changing in a way, and tech is a huge part of that. And at the same time, this also means that we need to update the grammar, you know, the way we communicate with people. I really believe that. And therefore this kind of tech becomes, or this kind of new materials become interesting, yeah. And it's also, you know, these things are available. They're out there now, yeah.
Question in the back? Is there a microphone around there?
Yeah, actually I'd like to ask the model how she feels. Like, is it, does it do something for you, or are you just thinking of your function of showing it off right now, or is it
Does
like,
it hurt?
Like, does it?
Doesn't hurt.
No, but
no.
Is it strange or something? Because basically you're going from like being almost naked to being completely naked, sort of. Like and yeah, I mean, right now, okay, we're all looking at it, and it's research and it's interesting, but somehow, like, you know, you're also very exploited. And does it make you feel a certain way, or is it?
It doesn't feel like really naked, because my whole body is with this, but it gives a strange feeling that everybody can see everything, like, because I don't have that feeling, the same feeling. So that's about it.
But do you feel maybe a little bit powerful, or?
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a new experience, so I'm the first one.
Okay.
But yeah, because all the colors and it's all high tech, so it gives a powerful feeling. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for showcasing it. I think you do it very well.
Thank you.
Any other question? Oh, yes.
Oh boy. I want this guy, not
this one first. Marnix comes next. Here?
Oh, okay. In how far is the shape of the costume related to the technical aspect? Like, for instance, the shape of the hair. This thing on her throat is in fact the only thing that shows some sort of technique.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if there could be a relation between the shape that it gets finally with the technical.
It's a good question, because in a way we didn't want it to be about that somehow. We didn't want the technology to be visible, but it actually would be merged more in a natural, in a supernatural way. So there were a lot of restraints in a way how we could cut it or not, etc., etc. But in the end, it shouldn't look like that. I always give the example of like the escalator, which you have in the metro stations here in Rotterdam. 100 years ago, it was a static thing, and you would use it to go up and down. But now, when you enter, it sort of picks you up and starts running already in front of you. So it's already like an extension of what you do. Yeah. It doesn't really matter how it works, you know. It can still be a part of you and your reality.
So in effect, you want to just follow in the normal development of fashion. You just want to follow in the development of fashion.
Well, the fun part is there are always restrictions which you sort of want to merge together. What we did a lot, if you could turn around for 1 sec. Of course, you don't want to put like, if you go technically speaking, show too much ugly wires or batteries. And Maartje spent a lot of time on like putting it sort of in the hairpiece. So that it actually would look like it's been grown in more.
No, I was thinking that maybe the hair themselves could be wire.
Sorry? Wire?
Yes, yeah. That something could be connected with that.
Sorry? Yeah, no, we should definitely team up, yeah.
Sorry,
but we should, no, we should use the paint on the previous group.
Yeah.
But I think for now, but this is one example of the options, and this is the interpretation of Maartje of how to work with it. But of course, there are many variations possible, and this is something we will explore next year for sure. So there will be a whole range of it. But I do think, you know, it's more. Let's not focus too much on the tech, but let's more figure out like what kind of new experience it and communication devices it can generate. Yeah.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Marnix was first, I think.
Marnix is a nice guy.
When talking about this
Hiding. Oh, we need a mic. I guess everybody got me.
Yeah.
But, revealing, hiding parts of the body. I'm wondering, I have a question about the design, and I'm not sure if I should ask it to you or to Maartje. But basically, I see all the things I want to see from the model already. So for me, it really doesn't make sense that this plastic either becomes foggy or transparent. I was wondering whether that part of revealing and hiding was an element in the design process.
Mm-hmm. Maartje, you want to answer this one, or you want me to do it? I can do it? Okay. Contrast. It's about contrast. Some parts you always see, and some parts you don't. Okay. And this is the key element, which I think, you know, we're in this in-between phase, where we go from a static world to a dynamic one. So in that way, I personally really like this area where I can see it always, but at the same time, that's exactly when I know when it changes or not. So yes, in that way, I think it's necessary to put some diversity in that. Okay. It builds up the momentum. Yeah. You need to hide things to show things. Something like that. Yeah.
It's a matter of composition of dynamics. I guess.
It all is. Yeah.
Last
question?
Yeah. Okay, my question is not for you, Dan, or for Maartje. It's for the photographers around here.
Oh.
I see a lot of them with digital cameras, and I would like you to just look at one of the pictures and see, do you get it transparent or do you get it opaque?
Short time. Sorry. It's only transparent for a short time, but if you flash, you see it and you can catch that moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
So the photographer gets a bonus. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think it is now time to ask all the people that have been demonstrating and presenting tonight back to this stage. Where are we? Karen, Herme, Isabel, Matt, Franco, and Lucy. Maybe as our critical respondent tonight, you... Sorry. No, you don't have to put your beard down. This is test lab. No, but I'm curious about what you think of the project you've seen so far. And we need a microphone because there are people watching live.
Okay. Why did you choose fashion as a way of piloting this technology? Is it because you're interested in communication and control and letting go within people? Because I also think in architecture this is an amazing material.
Well, it's funny that you mention it, because I literally just came back from a project where we are going to apply these kind of things to architecture as well. So so for sure it's a scale thing, but what I liked about the fashion is that it also has this continuous update loop, huh? Like when I buy a jeans at Jack & Jones, 2 weeks later it's not there anymore. So it already has this transition in itself, but at the same time the materials itself sort of, don't get affected by that. So what if we could, update that or think that? And this element of exposure, the Moroccan versus the LA.
Yeah.
No, for sure, it made sense somehow.
Yeah. And where do you see it going now? I know that this is the first showcase and you're just at the beginning, but are you thinking business applications? Are you thinking collaboration?
We're going to make a series, yeah.
A collection?
Yeah, it will be,
Okay.
yeah, for sure. I mean, this will not be me. I'm not going to design the dress.
Yeah.
I shouldn't. But no, for sure. It's going to be definitely a series where we're going to use very low tech, like the crazy stuff, the air things you made with the paint. Ranging from more high tech material.
So a combination of two different materials together.
Oh, sure. I mean, we should merge that for sure. But to create this new natural, this supernatural behavior in fashion, I think this is the most intriguing part.
Because if I see it, I wanted actually them to turn the lights down to see if it made any difference. But I saw it before and it was almost as if it was breathing. So it had an animal kind of impact. And I find that part really interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is interesting when it's not about anymore, like where's the sensor and how does it work and what does it cost, but it creates a new vibe somehow, a new emotion.
Yeah, I think it's more interesting when it's less about fashion and more about instinct or animal.
Yeah, skins.
Exactly.
Skins, yeah, I think this is key.
Yeah.
And can you also give some thoughts on the other projects that we've seen tonight?
Yeah, I actually came a little bit late to your project, the Digital Veil, so I'm sorry, because I was just finishing presenting, and I have some notes here. Yeah, I guess for me, I was trying to understand that in a way, not only is it a technical intervention, but a cultural experience as well, because as soon as you go underneath a veil that is looking like a Moroccan kind of outfit, then you're embarking into a different culture. So in a way, you've got that kind of experience happening on one level, and then you have the technological experience on another level, and I don't know if you can separate those experiences or if they're together. I wonder if the same experience or your behavior or your response to the digital veil would be different if it wasn't a veil, if it was just you touching your body and there's nothing over your face.
Maybe you comment. Maybe you came a little bit late, and maybe.
Yeah.
I think in every culture you'll have this kind of tension with invisibility, and right now in the culture where we live, we at one hand tend to hide behind personal communication devices when we reach out for each other. And at the same time, so covering our bodies really, and at the same time we get really scared when someone in a burqa or any appears in the street, and we want to bring those experiences together and see what the experience and the need for invisibility for private spaces. And I think with this project is about researching on a personal basis the private space and see how it gets merged with the public space, how it's changing. And as the first speaker was talking about a way out of the cyberspace, well, Herman and I, with our work, we always look for situations where we can research with the audience together for new social forms and in the way it is changing. It's not about good or bad, it's about what is the sensitivity in this and how can we experience it, how can we name it, how can we feel it, and how do we go on with it, developing it.
But it is indeed also about researching these cultural contexts and taboos. And I mean, in England, you can order now a hooligan burqa. So, yeah, burqas have different purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for some people, I'm sure it's a very intimate part of their culture that perhaps they don't agree with what you're doing, perhaps.
Yeah.
Which is very provoking for them.
Yeah. We have an appointment with a platform Garanti in Istanbul. They want to show it, so we really look forward to go to the Middle East and show it, and what in that culture it means to, do you need each other to look in the eyes, to trust each other, as a total different connotation.
Yeah.
But the need for trust is a universal one.
Because I think when you said just in the beginning that you think that people are hiding behind their technology, I don't know.
Covering their bodies. I'm not saying hiding. No.
Because if I see, Facebook, all these kinds of applications and websites like I Shot Myself, or these are like really self-ploitation. People are.
Yeah, but that's also why you're visible in the digital space, but invisible in real. So that you can only enter the data veil if your picture is taken. You cannot go in it without taking your picture.
Okay.
And I think to describe myself like I want to kill myself on the internet is quite a different...
Oh no, I Shot Myself is a website where you take pictures of yourself and you expose them on the website. It's not killing yourself.
But that's a different kind of intimacy. And I think we more and more focus on the exposure of intimacy. Whereas intimacy has another quality, which is anchored in your body. And they merge. And it is a really interesting field.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think the crowd's getting kind of restless.
Yeah.
So I would actually like to hear from Franco, just in a brief statement, if you think all of what you've seen tonight could fit that mission of this way out. Do you think these projects are a worthy endeavor in terms of finding this way out of the connective mode?
Not really. I mean, it's not the problem. I mean, I'm not looking for the way out every day. And I think that it's. I see many very interesting symptoms, I would say, of the difficulty of distinguishing between what is beautiful and what is ugly, what is pleasurable and what is disgusting, and so on. For instance, in the beautiful creations of Lucy, I saw this kind of ambiguity between possibility and repulsion, disgust, and I mean, we are not going straight towards the way out. We are touching things. We are trying to find not exactly a way, but a new perception, and maybe this is the way we are going to find a way out.
So what we've done tonight is a lot of touching, I guess. Okay, thank you, Franco. I would like to wrap this up by doing a very quick question to each and every one of you. Two alternatives, and you have to choose. Basically, to get a sense of what we've seen tonight is already up to par with real unmediated intimacy. One sec. Isabel and Matt, human synthesizer or analog jamming?
Okay, thanks. I mean, I guess to me it's analog. And the reason I say that it's analog is because you can keep some of these beautiful artifacts of analog as purely analog, and then you can reinforce or enhance or explore them digitally, but you can't do the opposite. You know, trying to create an analog synthesizer with a digital machine seems inappropriate. So yeah.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Yeah, I agree the same for me, because I think analog has this depth to it that the synthesizer only brushes the surface of, so yeah, I totally agree with Matt.
Okay, the next one is for Karen Hammer. Physical body or network body?
Why choose?
I think that's a very conclusive answer, yes. Dan, mediated nakedness or real nakedness?
Real.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
That's clear.
This is, but it helps.
Okay, I think that wraps up the evening here. Thank you very much to all of the speakers and presenters. I would like to get on stage for the closing announcements. Can you maybe also move to this side of the crowd? Then I'll do them here. Otherwise, I have to split myself up. Okay, thank you, Franco Berardi, for traveling all the way here from Italy to kick off this program tonight with a splendid keynote. Thank you, Lucy McRae, for a wonderful lecture and the input in this wrap-up debate. Thank you, Karen Lancel, Herman Maat, Isabel Lizardi, Matt Johnson, Daan Rozegade, the Studio Rozegade team, Maatje Dijkstra, of course, for these great demonstrations. You also saw Kimora of Jimmy Model Management, as well as Jan and Annemarie of Dance Group Data helping out in the demonstrations. A big thanks to them. And yes. And besides all of the people that you saw on stage, there's also a lot of people working in the production here backstage. For instance, these are visagist Joyce Kern and musician Nuke, who helped out in the intimacy presentation. There are volunteers, Alex, Tanya, and Barbara running the bar, making sure that you can get your very needed drinks. A special thanks to Wilco, Richard, and Anna Mercedes, who make up our production team and who had to rebuild this space 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Many thanks to our camera and live streaming team. Manuel, Pascal, Jade, thanks for the great camera work. Alessandro and Reo upstairs making sure that everything's streamed, and Jan Sprey making sure that everything's documented on photography. to the V2 lab, who helped out in the realization of intimacy and teletrust. A very special thanks to Ivana, who has made an incredible contribution to tonight's program as the intern to our events team. To you all, I would like to invite you to subscribe to our newsletter at the bar in case you want to hear about the next test lab. And for now, feel free to stick around, have a drink, and especially test all these works. Thank you.
Record of the delightful piece they're going to play this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, 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 your attention, please, attention, please, attention, please.
And now the moment we've been waiting for is here.
I have something to tell you. Suddenly something seems to have happened. Suddenly something seems to have happened. Everybody seems to be staring in one direction. People seem to be frightened, even terrified. I want everybody to understand this.
I don't understand.
I don't understand. There are a lot of things we don't understand either.
We need answers from you. What did you expect to find? What did you expect to
Who's
find?
going to be our future?
It's your responsibility to do something about it. Well, I have the key in my hand. All I have to find is the lock. The lock. The lock. The lock.
Now listen to me, all of you.
Hey,
Thank you.